You were listening to No PC Allowed, aka No Political Correctness Allowed, and I am Mac Iverson. The greatest evil of our era, rhinos. Many people, of course, will agree rhinos, or Republicans in name only, are a bad thing, but they will argue for me to call them evil goes a bit too far, especially when speaking about our entire era. For me to say that the greatest evil of our time is to be a rhino might sound like hyperbole. But to communicate with clarity, to explain why rhinos are not merely misguided and unnecessary, because they bring no added benefit except to the Democrats, but they are genuinely evil, to show that, we have to start with precise definitions and strip rhinoism down to its core. 3 words must be defined: socialism, evil, and compromise. First, what is socialism? First of all, never trust any ism when the very definition is shrouded in deceit. What do I mean by this? The so-called definition of socialism is the following: collective ownership, focus on equality and public welfare. Sounds nice, but is it objectively true? What countries are defined as socialist? Well, there's China. It's the very same government that massacred many thousands of civilians in Tiananmen Square for free speech protest. Does that sound like being concerned with, quote, equality and public welfare as per its definition? Okay, Cuba is also socialist. Over 100,000 have died trying to escape that hellhole. In short, it's because socialism is evil. Why else would so many try to escape? Many cite Sweden as being socialist. It is not. It is a social welfare state, which sounds like a reasonable compromise. So many rhinos want to play footsie with the welfare state. Welfare, to them, sounds nice. That's why so many rhinos are eager to compromise and play nice with socialists in the Demon Rat Party. And so let's drill down further on what it means to be a rhino. Second, we must define evil. What is evil? ChatGPT says this: evil is the deliberate and unjustified infliction of severe harm, especially when empathy or moral awareness is present, but ignored. Keeping all that in mind, what does the following sound like to you? If you're 4 years old and you are told by an adult, hey, if you want to, you can change your sex. You can throw away any last semblance of sanity and become a multi-headed hydra of sexual confusion, and that is actually beneficial to you, the 4-year-old. Never mind that all this will, in short order, drive any well-adjusted child to want to toss himself off the nearest bridge ASAP. What does all that sound like to you? If you said anything other than evil, then you are obviously evil as well. Evil is no longer odd. It is normative in the Demon Rat Party. Now, we can saw back and forth, forever trying to change one another's mind on this topic. But if you are willing to just throw away over 5,000 years of civilized common sense and decency in favor of something that is totally weird, new, and off the rails, then you, yourself, must be considered evil. Because it means you are completely reckless regarding the safety and security of the innocent. I've said this many times, and people on our side totally get this. Sexually confusing a child on purpose is akin to, imagine this, picking up a child by the ankles and swinging him around and bashing his head into a concrete wall as hard as you can. The only reason I don't go crazy and act on this very sincere belief of mine is because I know I'm in the severe minority. No one else talks this way. So what good is my life if I have to spend the rest of my productive years behind bars? In vain attempt to protect these children when too many of us are unnecessarily living like the walking dead. There's that word again, unnecessary. Jesus also said it very succinctly when he declared, it would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. This all goes way beyond just depressing, not because we're victims of cruelty beyond our power, but because we're dealing with cruelty within our power and simply choose to do nothing. That is what makes rhinoism so utterly evil. Remember, the definition of evil is that we know better, but we choose to do no better. Rhinos are Republicans, so they know what's right, but they don't do what's right, usually due to their own selfish ambitions. Third and finally, in how we must see rhinos, moving on to the word compromise. What is compromise? In its simplest terms, nobody gets everything they want, but everyone gets something. What do the compromisers want? To please everyone. In stark contrast, who makes the best leaders? The answer is baked into the very question. Leaders who actually lead, of course. Weak political hacks placate and waffle to kind of sort of get what they want, but they don't lead at all. What political hacks do best is look out for number one. Most rhinos are looking for the same goodies that Democrats get, and it's made them so successful in the eyes of the world. Bribes, insider trading secrets, massive pensions, perks, backroom deals, criminal global networking, and special interest payoffs to make them filthy rich and powerful. Conservatives will admit that we are at a crossroads. The left has moved so far left that they've left America. Now, out-of-the-closet socialists, who are not ashamed of that horrible title, are saying that socialism is a solution to all our problems. But socialism has an embarrassing record of total failure. A quick synopsis of the greatest horrors in history have do-gooder socialist roots. From Hitler, who was a National Socialist, to Stalin, to Mao Zedong, to Pol Pot, to Biden, a.k.a. Brandon, and on it goes. Hundreds of millions of innocent lives have been fire-roasted at the altar of equality. Historically, socialism equals cruelty and total failure every single time. It is especially horrible that the response to the socialist threat has been so weak from the Republican Party. President Trump's first term was marred by a do-nothing Republican-controlled House and Senate during his first 2 years. In his second term, things have gotten better, mostly because Trump is an energetic executive. But the Republicans still control the House and Senate, and yet congressional activity is still moving at a snail's pace because there are just too many Republicans who are Republican in name only. The term rhino is a strong pejorative for those who are unwilling to stick their noses out to do any real good for America. And because the stakes are so high, this is why I call them evil. That is because they are either totally unaware or uncaring about the outcome of this coming November election. They act as though they are slackers on a job and only working to get a paycheck. This is a totally unpatriotic way to behave in Congress. And also let me reemphasize that this evil defines our entire era. We must not oversimplify the situation. If America was not so perfectly divided, then the rhinos would not be the problem. But because we are so perfectly divided, rhinos must now take front and center of blame for the immediate future. George Washington hated the two-party system idea. Why? Because he knew it would funnel corruption into two almost perfectly divided competing interest categories, whipsawing around each other back and forth like a pair of dancing twisters. Two undulating funnels of dirt that do nothing but cancel each other out and drive America crazy in the process. George Washington knew that would happen, and it did. The prevalence of rhinos in the body politic is an ongoing problem. It is a chronic disease. It's like a virus that does not want to go away. This uncaring, milquetoast, apathetic belief in American mediocrity at very best, and the subconscious belief that we can never rise above our current circumstances, has a stranglehold on the soul of America. This is no exaggeration. Being passionless about America's greatness in this, our 250th year of American independence, is to me unforgivable. Even with Trump performing miracles, too many, especially younger people, are depressed over even the near future. And with the twin disasters of AI and robotics pounding hard at our door, how can anyone get enthused over permanently losing one's job and being stuck on welfare for eternity? This is the well-designed plan of the deep state technocrats. But it is only a plan. By contrast, the American can-do attitude has to be a well-ingrained habit before it can ever save us from ourselves. But we've been so complacent and therefore weak for so long that our survival instinct has almost been totally erased from our psyches. Just consider the insanity of it all. Isn't the threat of total ruination of our ability to survive on our own without tyrannical governments and corporations lording over us, isn't that the greatest existential threat ever conceived? And isn't that what bloody wars have always been fought over? It absolutely is. And this threat is universal. It threatens all of us. And yet, otherwise intelligent Americans who embrace technology are saying, well, AI gives me job security because it is such a hot and growing sector. Yes, but for how long? How long before robotics and AI pushes you out into the unemployment line? And it won't even be an unemployment line. It will be a welfare line, and a never-ending one at that. Is AI ever going to end once it gets started? Or robotics, is it going to come to an end point? Can we control it after a while? Obviously no. Once you lose your job, that's the end goal. I mean, that's obvious. You may be wondering why you, dear listener, are so accepting and resigned when you should be panicking and fighting back with everything you got. It's because the billionaire class has purchased this apathy for us. In a country where everything seems to have a price tag, our souls have been forgotten. When everything is about affordability and quickness and convenience and GDP and being realistic and pragmatic, competing with China and so on, when we over-focus on all that, the genuine lives of authenticity that our souls cry out for gets buried alive and forgotten. Even the very question of whether we should go down this road at all into a dystopian technocratic hell on earth gets totally forgotten. The deep state mafia also wants you to think it's too late to do anything about it now anyway. The powers that be don't want you to even question their business plan because there is way too much money to be made at your expense. So they want you to remain nice and stupid, wondering instead about the actual ass diameter size of the Kardashian broads, and who is Taylor Swift banging these days and how often, or talking about the weather, or how to cure toe fungus, and hey, how about them Chiefs? You know, real deep stuff like that. Anything and everything that keeps you from looking at them and blaming them. Some will say, well, you can't stop the future. You can't stop human progress. Don't you see the inherent flaw in that very assertion? That assumption is a glaring false premise. Aren't we, the people, supposed to define and choose what progress and what the future holds for us? Or is it up to a relatively speaking minuscule number of billionaires to decide our fates for us? But listen to me. Lean into your made-in-China speakers. I have a secret for you. We vastly outnumber them. And if we vastly outnumber them by a factor of about 40,000 to 1, then guess what? We have nothing to worry about. That is how easy and overwhelming a victory this should be for us. But big money buys a lot of cover for their gangster globalist plans. An ad here, an ad there, a compromise movie here, a sellout low IQ actor over there, and before you know it, they have purchased your silence by brainwashing you into remaining as silent as the grave. Because they have convinced you that you're kind of weird for having genuine Christian virtue. But self-awareness is totally free. It costs you nothing out of pocket. It just means looking at some uncomfortable truths. So we can pull out of our collective stupor, if just to start questioning on a massive scale this pre-manufactured future that's been handed to us. If the deep state mafia ever has a roadblock to achieving some dirty goal, they just throw some bribe money at it. And voila, problem solved. That is why it's so easy for evil to win over good. What's the solution? Be incorruptible, like Jesus. The imitation of Jesus is our only path to freedom. That obviously is a slow burn solution. John Adams was spot on when he said that freedom is only for a moral and chaste people. He wrote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." In other words, America needs to be almost the opposite of what America is today. Now, you can get all dark and depressed over this, but to me, this simply means that we are standing on the precipice of a new era, one that demands a Christian moral response from us that is without equivocation. This challenge is not depressing, quite the opposite. This is off the chain and way off the charts exciting. We have never done this before, not on the scale in which it needs to happen. And it must happen. If it does not, if we do not rise above the mediocrity markers that have been painted just millimeters above our crouched down, depressed little heads and limiting our passions, if we fail to rise above the limitations that have been imposed on us from without and agreed to from within, then we are doomed. America is finished. Mark my words. Action steps. Number 1, only attend chapter by chapter, verse by verse churches. Do not waste your precious time going to any other kind of church. Here's a great hint. They say things that are anti-woke and offend those pinheads. Number 2, the only way to win is by following and imitating Christ every single day of your life. You will fail. You will fail again and again at first for a while, but there is no other way. Rhinos are the greatest evil of our era because they create the most destruction if we lose. Pro-American activist Scott Presler said it this way: Democrats may be a lot of things, but they know Republican senators will always be weaker than they are. Now with the Republican White House, House, and Senate, our weak Republican Senate is on the verge of giving Democrats ultimate power. Even in control, Republican senators are incapable of wielding power and delivering victories. With 84% of Americans in agreement for photo ID and proof of citizenship, spineless jellyfish would rather deliver decline than seize this great opportunity handed to them on a golden platter. Why aren't you shouting to the rooftops? Why are you scrolling social media instead of writing letters? Why aren't you planning a peaceful trip to D.C. to meet with your members of Congress? Why are you not calling and texting everyone you know to empower them to take action? Courage is contagious. We, the American people, will simply not tolerate inaction. We expect results. We demand results. We will not sit back and watch a Republican Senate hand victories to the Democrats because they are too busy taking weeks off instead of daring to work on behalf of the American people. Get mad. Courage is contagious. Unquote. Now is not the time to be a nattering nabob of negativity. We do not have that luxury of time. We must be positive and assertive and have a laser-focused vision that can never be defeated. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. You've been listening to No PC Allowed. I am Mac Iverson.